Hey y'all, welcome to The Skintrovert. I'm your host, Sam Bazile. I hope y'all are buckled up because today we are going to be taking on a ride. You hear me? A ride. Now, today's episode is going to be a little bit of a continuation of a previous episode that I did. That episode was titled Social Media, the Monster or the Machine in Aesthetics. And I would really encourage you, if you haven't tuned into that episode, just go a few back and give it a listen or a watch because it is a unique take on my opinion of social media, how I feel that social media has grown and evolved into something that was just a personal space to now something that you really need to conduct business. And while it is my opinion and my take, that's not what I want for the Skintrovert. So I want the Skintrovert to be a place where we all learn and grow together. I don't ever want the Skintrovert to be just a space where you're just fed all of my opinions and my beliefs and my education level. No, I want the Skintrovert to be a place where we all come together and we learn and we grow and we build this industry together. So in honor of that, I'm going to take social media, the monster or the machine in aesthetics, and I'm going to turn it into the aesthetics algorithm featuring Michael Razanno. So Michael Razanno is a esthetician that I have followed for many years. I love his content. I appreciate how he educates his listeners. And to be honest, I thought he was the perfect person, very well qualified to bring in and build off of this topic. So, buckle up, guys, and let's talk to Michael. So, hey, Michael, welcome to the Skintrovert. I am very excited to have you on our episode today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, I wanted you to take time to introduce yourself because I am more than impressed with who you are and what you bring to the table. Would you share with your listeners that may not know you a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. Thank you so much for your kind words. I've been a licensed esthetician for about 5 years. I'm originally from upstate New York, and now I practice in Philadelphia. I work for a plastic surgeon, primarily treat acne, but I love treating all skin conditions, and I love to not only bring education onto my social media platform, but also humor. I love utilizing social media as an advantage in my career, and getting to teach and speech has been teach and speak has been so amazing. So I'm excited to be here to talk about social media because it's such a hot topic in our industry.
Yes, well, thank you. I am very impressed with your resume, we'll say. And if I'm right, you've been an esthetician for 5 years?
Yeah, 5 years.
Okay, so you and I kind of had a little bit of a different upbringing in aesthetics, if
Mhm.
you will. I've been around now for about 20 years, and it's very
Oh,
interesting because social media has evolved and it's evolved quite a bit. When I started as an esthetician, it was not a part of our business at all. Social media was really just a place where we just shared personal things, maybe too much personal things that we probably
mhm.
shouldn't have, but
Same. All the
that was our
time.
that was the extent of it. So that was what we had. And if I wanted to share my before and afters, or if I wanted to, show people my menu of services, we just sent them
Right.
to the website like the Arc Ages. So I have seen such a really cool evolution of social media go from a place where it really wasn't even needed to,
Right.
in my opinion, almost crucial to do business.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you, as someone who has come in, I would say when social media was already prevalent and needed, do you think that an esthetician nowadays can be successful without showing up on social media?
I do. I think at the end of the day, like word of mouth and like family and friends and that kind of exposure is like still, the best of the best. But I do think that social media is so important. I mean, it's essentially free marketing. So especially when you're starting out and you're slower, I think it's really, really important to get behind social media because there's not really like any harm you could do as long as you're, posting appropriately and like
Yes.
keeping your image and professional looking good. But there's only something to gain from social media. So at this point, even if you're not comfortable getting in front of the camera, you can get behind the camera. There really is a place for everybody so that you can use it to your advantage in your business.
I agree 100%. And can you tell the listeners, has social media always been an important part of your career?
I would say so. I started as soon as I started, I knew that I was going to be slow. So I really wanted to figure out social media because I knew that that was such an important piece. When I was in esthetician school, I was following all of these estheticians on social media. So I knew it was something that I wanted to get behind as soon as I graduated. So I started for Hand and Stone, which is a corporate company. And I mean, my books were very empty. And so I figured out, what I like posting, what I didn't like posting. And when like the views started happening and I was able to, figure out the analytics and educate myself on what that stuff meant, I learned, what, my audience like to see, and it kind of just took from there. But the credibility that my platform has given me has really substantially helped me from, behind the room, behind the bed in the treatment room. It's really helped me to get clients trust before they even come into the door because they're impressed by my platform. But I've also had, so many opportunities as far as like speaking and teaching goes for other brands that I wouldn't have had without social media. So social media has definitely played a huge part in my career for sure.
I love that you brought that up and you said something that I think more people need to kind of hold on to. You said that it helped gain trust, right?
Mhm.
Isn't that such a cool I think that's such an advantage that maybe we would never have without social
Right.
media. You're able
Yeah.
to truly speak to people before they even walk through your door. So your funny reels, things that you think people aren't even watching, or it doesn't even matter, it does.
Yeah,
They
absolutely.
see your personality, they see how funny you are, how engaging you are, and that brings them in. And then you throw that on top of your education pieces. You show your smarts, you show your before and afters, you show how qualified you are to be here. It's just a recipe for success. It, like you said, it lays down a good foundation of trust that makes people want to come in and see you. So, for
Right.
anybody that's listening, any new estheticians that maybe might be a little bit scared or nervous, or not even esthetician, just providers in general, if you're scared or nervous to post on social media, that's normal. Yes, it's very scary, but see how great that can be for
Yeah.
your career, just
Oh,
having
and I
that
wasn't
trust.
always so comfortable with social media. I remember like I was dating my ex at the time back in New York, and I would like come and like show him my reels. I was so proud of myself, and he was like, "You look so stiff. Like you are not like this in person." So it like even for me, people might look at my platform and like be really impressed with how comfortable I seem in front of the camera. Like it has not always been like that. So it's definitely something that is going to take time. And I think just like getting in that mentality that it is going to take time, and that there's only nowhere to go but up from here, I think is important to keep in mind.
I love that. Well, I think besides, like you said, there's so much positivity in it. You can show your smarts, you can show your before and afters, you show your work, you get to build a relationship with people before they even meet you, which is
Yeah.
wild. So
Yeah.
you have all these positives, but I definitely see a kind of a weird little shift happening lately. I don't know about you, but I'm gonna
Oh
assume
yeah.
because we have probably have the same FYP because we see the same things, but
Oh, we sure do.
there's been so much negativity coming out lately, and that just makes me sad. I see other providers going on and they're bashing providers for maybe services that they don't offer or product lines that they don't carry, or coming down, like I see like scientists or other providers like coming down on people for actually having the balls to get on and educate. That breaks my heart. It really does. It breaks my heart because I do understand the need to right a wrong. So, like, if you, and you've done this before in your career, like, if you see like wrong techniques or maybe some red flags that patients should be able to identify walking into a practice that maybe might not be qualified, I get that. And look, I back that 100%. There needs to be more transparency and more education. But what I don't love seeing is the bashing and the disrespect coming from products and services that are truly backed by science. They're
Right.
clinically backed. They're things that have been around forever. And I just don't love it. It just gives me like mean girl vibes. I just hate
Yeah.
it. And I think, I mean, I might have had this figured out, but before I give my take on it, have you ever had any of this like negative energy on your social media with your presence?
No, absolutely. I just did a podcast with Clean Skin Club, and I talked about diet and acne, which is like such a controversial topic for estheticians to be having that conversation. And I mean, this was filmed like 8 months ago, so I definitely would probably rephrase some things if I could go back in time, just from what I experienced on social media and like what I've learned as far as like language being important, certain languages that you're using, and like how to approach the conversation as an esthetician that's not necessarily like crossing your scope of practice.
Yep.
But I absolutely have, and in that moment, you just acknowledge and move on. But at the core, you're still, there posting um to help people and to put out educational content. And like none of the information that I necessarily said was inaccurate. It just people would argue that it wasn't all of it's not clinically backed by clinical data. So we shouldn't be saying things that aren't necessarily clinically backed by clinical data, which I don't know if I agree. I think, experiences are important to share too.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
and I don't want things like that to discourage people from posting because nobody wants to be blasted for posting misinformation. But that's the one part that stinks about that is I feel like it can be discouraging for a newer esthetician or someone that isn't super comfortable posting, and then they're only looking at the cons and not the pros as far as like what the outcome could be.
I think something just to note here on that topic, this is the thing, like you and I as estheticians, so we're educated by maybe the school that we went to, right? So we get that education. But then
Mhm.
as we grow in our career, sadly for estheticians, there really isn't a whole lot of continuing education for us.
Yeah.
So what our education is based on is brands. It's based on maybe device education and this is what we have access to.
Right.
So what we do is we're sitting here building our treatment plans, we're building our education practices, we're doing all that based on what we were given. And it's just sad that someone can come on and just rip us to shreds because it's not always misinformation. Sometimes this industry is growing and it is growing leaps and bounds. And maybe what was 100% factual and correct 5 years ago now maybe we have a different way of treatment. So I
Yeah.
think that's also something to understand that people are trying to tout people or come down on people for misinformation. It's not necessarily misinformation. It's
Right.
just a different way of treat. You know, like I say this a lot of times when I'm mentoring estheticians and other providers. I tell them there's not a black and white way to get to the finish line. There is
Right.
many, many roads that we can take. And as a provider, it's your responsibility to get as much education as you can. And once you're knowledgeable, then you get to decide which way you want to take, which road you want to take to get to that finish line. And it doesn't mean that someone takes road A if you're taking road B, that they're incorrect. It just
Right.
means that they're taking a completely different route to get there. And as a provider, by the way, who is also absolutely qualified to be here, sit down, calm
Yeah.
down,
Yeah.
worry
Yeah.
about you, get in your space. And I feel like there's not enough of that.
Yeah.
Like, I had something happen recently. I mentored an esthetician and and look, just to give a backstory on her really quickly, this girl, there's not an education platform that she does not sign up for. She
Yeah.
craves it. She just wants all of it. So she's
Yeah.
getting all of this information. She's super excited. I helped guide her making this video on just product ingredients. It was like glycolic acid, salicylic, that kind of stuff. She made a beautiful video. It was actually quirky and it was funny and engaging. And it even prompted them for like feedback. And it was just so good. And I remember like weeks had passed and I reached out and I was like, girl, are you going to post that video? And she's like, no, I chickened out. And I was like, why? And
Yeah.
she's
That's
like, well, because I was like scrolling through my Instagram. I mean, my Instagram. And then I saw this like scientist come on and he was slamming other estheticians for saying like what he felt was incorrect. But what he said wasn't what I learned. And so now I'm just not going to do it and I'm scared.
Yeah.
That breaks my heart. It
Yeah, I
makes me so
know.
sad because it literally like dimmed her shine. She was so discouraged. It actually started making her question everything she's ever learned. And I just don't feel like that's what this is supposed to be. I think you should
Mm.
feel confident in this space. Do
Mhm.
you agree?
Absolutely. 100%. Yeah. I mean, that's unfortunately that's just something that you have to be mindful of when you're posting on social media is you do have to be open to maybe, experiencing some negativity. I have been on my platform for 5 years. I have probably experienced 5% negativity and 95% positivity. So you really just have to focus on all the good responses because the feedback should be, mostly positive for the most part.
I love that feedback. I think that's great. And I do think I kind of, and I could be wrong on this. Again, this is going to be completely opinion based, but I
Yeah.
kind of think I have it a little bit of it figured out because I've tried to kind of go back on a lot of the negative posters and a lot of the negative stuff that I see. And I almost feel like it's coming from a place of pressure.
Right.
Pressure to be relevant because I don't know if you may not have experienced this because I feel like all of your content is gold, but I
Oh,
certainly
thank
have.
you.
when you put time and you put effort into creating something and then it just doesn't get engagement, right?
Yeah, and then
It's
sometimes the stuff that takes me 5 minutes to do will get all the engagement, and I'm like,
right.
bro,
It's so frustrating. So
God forbid I put in work.
correct. Okay. So you kind of get where I'm going with this. So
Yeah,
like I feel like you go through so much to create, which by the way is considered a free job. It's like a second job. We work a 9 to 5. Then after that, we got to create all this content.
right.
So when it doesn't get the engagement that you want, you feel like a little
Yeah,
defeated.
yeah,
So I think what they're noticing is that maybe the educational content or the things that are taking you forever to do don't really get engagement. But I think when people start posting about controversial topics or the
yeah.
messy things, well, that gets all the
Because
views
that's why,
because
well, that's why people rage bait because they want engagement. But I think it's important to know, and this is a funny story that I'll tell you. Well, I don't know if it's funny, but an interesting story I'll tell you is like when I started popping off on social media, I was like only doing the funny reels, and I was getting all of this like traffic and like views, and that felt really good. But I felt like I couldn't retain the traffic, like I wasn't converting them to followers. So it wasn't until I posted, the educational stuff that I started converting a lot of that traffic that was coming to my page. So
interesting.
I do think it's productive to, understand that not every post is going to be a home run. And I think having a flow and a balance of, posts that are going to get you a lot of traffic so you can drive that traffic to your profile, but also have the posts that will retain that traffic because the content has to be valuable for people to want to stay. And that's where, educational stuff really, shines for that piece of social media.
That is awesome feedback. I appreciate that. I
Yeah.
wasn't even going there with my thought, but like that's
Sorry.
no, I think that's good to know. This is what this is about. This is going to be hopefully very valuable to somebody, especially somebody that's new and maybe questioning if this is
Right.
worth their extra time. So
Yeah.
I do appreciate that. Really though, like what I kind of was just finding was that I just think, and I get it, I understand everybody loves messy, everybody loves drama. So when you rage bait or you post that clickbait stuff, that messy content, it's gonna get you the views and it's gonna get you the attention that you want.
Right.
But I almost feel like, and maybe this is just the educator in me and the passion that I have for this industry alone that makes me feel this way, but personally, I would rather post something valuable to this industry or educational and have 5 people like it than
Yeah.
to post the messy stuff or the controversial stuff or something that tears someone else down and get 5 million likes.
Yeah.
And I
No, I
get
love
it.
that.
I know that there's different types of people, but that's where I that's where I feel I was.
Yeah.
And I hate that. I hate that some people do feel the need to do that just for the attention, but I think I think there's something to be said here, and you made a video about this, and I'm hoping you can explain it. But I think what people are doing is they think, well, if I get all this engagement, if I get all of these likes, if I get all this attention, all of my competition is going to assume that I am just so busy and I've got all this business. You
Yeah.
made a video about that. Would you mind just giving us a little bit of info on that content?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important to know that like follower count, yes, I do like what it, like I said, it gives my clients trust. They see that I have a large platform. They get excited to see me before we even met. Like that's really cool. But like also when I started blowing up on Instagram even before my books were like remotely full. So I might have had 10, 15, 20,000 followers, but my books did not reflect that whatsoever. So I think it's important to keep in mind that like just because someone has a large follower account doesn't mean that they're busy. And my point with that is when when you do that and you compare your profile to other people, and now you're not in an unproductive mindset where you're comparing yourself to other providers and, oh, this esthetician has 50, 100,000 followers, but like you don't know if they're booked and busy. And then I have people that are, when I made that video, I had so many estheticians, which was beautiful to see, like commenting and being like, oh, I only have like 800 followers, or I have 1,200 followers and I'm like booked 4 weeks out. And I'm like, that's better than me, papa. Like, so I think it's important to know that like don't compare yourself. You don't know what their exact situation is. And like, yeah, like a big follower count might be pretty and impressive, but it doesn't really mean as much. It doesn't mean that they're, busy in the treatment room. So I don't think it's productive to compare yourself to another provider because it's not productive. And it might not mean anything.
All right. So I love that view. I think it's important for people to know that because I think they get lost in the sauce. And that's not really something that everyone needs to get caught up in. And I want to bring up another reel that you made.
Yeah.
It actually was a huge breath of fresh air for me, especially getting caught up in all of the negativity that I'm constantly seeing. When I see something like what you posted, it was like, oh, those things where you're like, okay, good people actually exist. So you made a reel that, like I said, in the midst of all of the negativity and the provider slamming peers, I stumbled across it and was just refreshing. So, do you remember the reel that you made? You posted about how you were explaining a meme that you had posted about making fun of estheticians that were concerned about other estheticians. Do you remember that? And can you kind of explain where you were going? I just found it refreshing because you're a,
Oh yeah.
you know which one I'm talking about, right? Okay.
Yeah.
You are a provider that does feel it necessary to call out like incorrect technique or burning
Right.
someone or something like that, but you're not calling out a provider's, you're not slamming them as a person. And I felt the way you handled yourself and coming back and saying, well, if you felt that, or if anyone took it out of context, it was
Right.
just beautiful. It was a beautiful
Yeah.
experience. Would you share?
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, I think I also acknowledge like I mean, like you mentioned, it's so toxic that estheticians are like worried about what other estheticians are doing. And
Yes.
I had green screened a video like 2 years ago and challenged this esthetician's view on purging because she said it wasn't real, which to me I completely disagree. But I was disappointed that like that was something that I green screened because, if her clients are getting results and her clients are happy, like there really is no study that says purging is real. It is what it is. Doctors talk about it. It makes sense to me. It makes sense to a lot of people, but that was a point where I was like, okay, I probably shouldn't have done that. But what I will stand by is like, and usually it's like a lot of things that are happening in different countries. There must not be like laser safety in other countries, but like when you're like blatantly shooting a laser and like the client's physically uncomfortable, nobody's wearing goggles, like the technique is just awful, or like clients are getting burned because of providers just being, lax or not, just being negligent, like that I feel like deserves to be called out. I would never like use someone's handle or like show the esthetician in the post, if that makes sense. But that kind of stuff, because our industry is, it gets a bad rep when these things happen. You saw what happened to Sonia
Preach.
Dakar when she, burned that poor girl
Yikes.
in Los Angeles. And that gives our industry a bad rep. It makes estheticians look like they're not educated or they don't know what they're doing, or the educational requirement is not enough to, have us perform the services that we're performing or do the treatments that we're doing. So I think like clients getting harmed is the kind of education that I think is appropriate to green
Yeah.
screen. But just like you said, from point A to point B, we're both getting there, like challenging another esthetician because they do something differently. That's when it's not okay, in my opinion.
I, you're so classy. I love it. I love
Thank
what you
you.
just
I'm
said.
not in my personal life. You'd be so impressed.
Well, listen, as long as you're classy as an esthetician, you always have my back. So
You gotta
this
have
is
it
the
in one
thing.
area of life, right?
Yes, you
Balance.
you handled yourself incredibly well, better than most that I've seen,
Thank
because this
you.
is the thing. We're human. We are flesh and bone. We are
Mm,
not perfect creatures, and there's always going to be times where we either make a mistake or, like I mentioned earlier, we're growing in our career. We're learning different things, and you need to feel confident in who you
right.
are, but also safe to come in and say, listen, I want to revisit something that I said previously. I want to bring that back up so we can kind of talk about it. And what that does is it shows other estheticians and other providers not to be afraid to share what they know, but also to be humble enough to say, let's revisit this, or even open up another dialogue or another conversation for more of us to get together and learn and grow. It was handled very well. And like I said, I
Thank
wish more
you.
in this space
Yeah.
could do that.
I
And
think
you,
humility. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you
no,
off.
no, go ahead.
I think humility is probably the most important thing to have too when you're gonna have a social
Oh
media
God,
platform
amen.
because like we mentioned, I mean, we get a lot of information from different companies. Some of it's brand bias, a lot of it's true, some of it's not. And so there are things that I was taught that I've learned to be untrue. And I think having the humility to own when you do something incorrectly, or maybe you weren't thinking well in that moment, and weeks, months down the road, you regret what you said. I think having humility is it doesn't it doesn't hinder your reputation. It doesn't make you
Nope.
less trustworthy to say, okay, I said this, I think this now, or I did this in this moment, and now I've had some time to reflect. I think humility is really beautiful, and I think people are insecure to be humble because, or have humility because they're worried that it's going to tarnish their reputation or make them look less than. But I actually would trust and respect someone that can own that and be humble and admit when they haven't been perfect versus someone that's just trying to put on this facade that they like do no wrong. So I just thought that was
I agree 100%. Okay, listen, I don't want to keep you too much longer because I know you have a very busy schedule, but I do have a couple
yeah.
little ending questions that I want to ask. So, as someone who is both a successful a provider and a content creator, what
Yeah.
advice would you give a provider when deciding on what content to post?
I would say, I mean, if you're just getting started, I think it's okay to try different things and see what works, but you do eventually want to get to a point where you have a niche or you have something that you're super passionate about and that you're really good at and do well in. And then take it from there. Once you figure out what kind of content you like to post or what kind of skin condition that you want to focus on or service. I mean, we're in aesthetics, so you could wax, nails, acne, pigment,
Yes.
really owning your niche and focusing on that because that will set you apart from other providers and make you memorable.
I love that. All right. In your opinion, what type of provider content is the most valuable to the patient, to the consumer? What do you think they love to see the most of, especially of what you post?
Yeah, I mean, of course, before and afters, it's a non-negotiable in our industry. And then, of course, the educational piece makes it look like you know what the F you're talking about. So
I
educate.
love that. You got to be credible. You got to be credible.
Exactly.
All right. So, one other thing, and I think this, we might have talked about this, but if you want to highlight it again, have you
Yeah.
ever chosen just not to post something and why? Did it ever like not align with you? Or did you ever feel pressure to have to post something that you didn't want to?
Mm,
I mean, I almost feel like you have such a great control over
yeah.
your social media that I don't think you've ever been put in that predicament. But if you were, like you're obviously growing and you're going to get more brand deals and more people are going to be reaching out
Oh,
to
okay.
you.
I have one example. I did like turn down a Neutrogena contract once, which I was like, ooh, like big commercial brand, like
Yes.
mom, I made it. It's my big break. But also like because they wanted me to put it on my page and like I was thinking about it and I was asking a couple providers and I was like, this is such a good opportunity, but like I remember shout out to Kelly if you're listening. I Vanity Skin Lab in Michigan. She was like, I would just be confused because you have access to better things. Why are you promoting something else? And I was like, that's what I needed to hear. So I ended up turning it down. Also, it'll confuse my clients because it's like, why are you recommending this $30 sunscreen to $20 sunscreen from the drugstore, but you're recommending, this $40 one from Face Reality if I can just get this one. So that was something that I had to, be like, oh, I want to take this, but I can't because it would confuse my audience and it would confuse my clients.
Yeah, but this is why you're so genuine because you are always a provider before you're a content creator
Oh yeah.
and you are putting that first. And so you're putting your patients and I appreciate that. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
that's so important. That's such a good point too, because I feel like a lot of estheticians are like, because being an esthetician or being a service provider, I feel like is so much popular now than it's ever been. And I feel like I was talking to the owner of the school that I went to like a couple weeks ago, and a lot of these as people going to esthetician school, they're kind of like going to esthetician school because they want to have a following on TikTok or they want to have an Instagram or they want to
It's
be a
silly.
content creator. And it's like, you will never be the best provider for your patients if your heart is literally in because you want to
Yes.
pop off on Instagram.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I think it's important to know that you're doing things for the right reasons and you're a service provider before you're a content creator for sure.
My God, I love that. Okay. And the final question, Michael,
Yes.
do you think social media is the monster or the machine in aesthetics?
She got some monster tendencies, but I think it's definitely the machine.
Okay, good. Perfect. All right. I agree with you. Thank you so much for spending time with me
Yeah,
and all the
of
Skintrovert
course.
listeners. And I don't know that it's possible, but if they don't know who you are, can you give them your handle where they can find you? And then if they want to come in and have some services or treatments where they can find you?
Yeah, absolutely. I am mostly active on Instagram. So Michael Razanno Skin. I think it's the same on TikTok, but I'm not super active there. And if you're ever in Philly, I am located in Northern Liberties at Philadelphia Facial Plastic Surgery and Med Spa. I'm there Monday through Friday. So if you're in town and you want to come in for a service, come through.
Love it. All right. Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you,
Thank you,
Skintrovert
Sam.
listeners. And until next time, bye, guys.
Bye.
Think of the Skintrovert as your aesthetics roundtable, not a training manual. This podcast is for professional education and discussion. It's not medical advice. Your scope of practice matters, regulations vary, and your license always leads. To continue the conversation, follow the Skintrovert on Apple, Spotify, or any platform that you listen to your podcasts.